This is Tabletop Babble, and I'm Amber. Today on the show, I chatted with the incredibly sweet, fun, and funny content creator, streamer, and TTRPG designer, Jess. We sat down on April 21st and talked all about her start in TTRPGs, getting into streaming, and what it takes to produce a actual play TTRPG show, plus tips on how to get started if you would like to do so as well. And then we also chatted about some of the games she's designed. Hi, Jess, and welcome to Tabletop Babble. For my listeners, if you would, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us your pronouns and what you do. Short, brief synopsis of what you do in the TTRPG space.
Heck yeah, thanks so much for having me. My name is Jess. You can find me at go_JG or GoJess in most of the places online, depending on which username they would let me have. My pronouns are she and they. I honestly kind of do a little bit of everything. I'm a full-time streamer, content creator, game designer, freelance writer, show producer, wearer of too many hats.
Oh my gosh. Well, great. That means we have so much to talk about.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like to do on the show is kind of get an idea of what was your first TTRPG experience? Was it streaming or was it offline? How'd you get started?
I definitely was super curious about tabletop long before I could get into it. I didn't have anything locally. I didn't have any friends who were really playing it, inviting me to their secret gatherings they were having, and and none of the game stores around me were super, if I'm honest, femme friendly.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, so I literally at one point had someone get excited when the game store owner was like, "Really, you want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, actually, the guys they might be mean to you." And yeah, so my start was rough. Definitely I had an interest long before I even really knew what it was, and then finally it was online gaming that finally gave me a space. I saw it first played because I was a big Felicia Day fan. I saw the Geek and Sundry when they were doing their first week of content, where they were like, "We're gonna do nonstop content our first week." And so I watched a large portion of that, and at one point there were these nerds who were, trying to sneak around and past the guards, and then they transfigured a bear into a mouse, and the druid turned into a bear and started dancing, and I was like, what the hell is this?
I want that.
I need this in my life.
Oh, so then when did you get invited to a secret, let's play this tabletop game? You're invited now. Here's your letter. Come and join us, Jess.
Yeah. So I was really not online socially at that point. I really wasn't on a lot of social networks. I had already turned on Facebook for all of a few months and been like, nope, not for me. I luckily had a Twitter, mostly for because I was a local foodie. So I had to use that and turn it around and to be like, wait, I can use this for nerd stuff. And I managed to find people who had seen the same show as me and were literally like, hey, let's do this thing. And so I literally had to work up the courage. Shy little introverted nerd me was like, I don't care, I want to get into shenanigans. It's really something I want to do. So I worked up the courage and signed up into a little group, where I think a group had made a Google Doc that was like, hey, anyone that wants to play, put your name in here and we'll start trying to gather groups together. And I got randomly paired into a group, and most of the people in the group were lovely.
Oh boy.
Not all, but it was a really good first step. And it was the sort of thing where you keep the good, you throw away the bad. I kept the friends that were good and continued to play on with them, and slowly refined my TTRPG tastes and group of friends that played and all that sort of stuff, further and further and further down the TTRPG rabbit hole.
So what was that first? Was it D&D that you first played?
Yeah, it was D&D 5e.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I have to know, did you get up to shenanigans? Did you live your shenanigans dream in that first game?
Not in the first game. Not in the first game. Sadly, the memories of the first game/games were not the best. Like I said, there were some really great folks. I'm really glad for the people I met. But literally some of my first memories of like the first game was the fact that I'd chosen to be a paladin because I really liked playing that type of like tank characters in video game, like fantasy RPG type stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna love this. This is what I'm gonna like because it's what I like in video games. Spoiler alert, it was not. But I basically played this big beefy lady of my dreams. You know, I was hugely tanky. All my skills were in strength. I rolled like an 18 or a 19 plus my +4 or whatever it was to break down a door. And the GM's response was, okay, but you're gonna need help because you're a girl.
No!
Yeah.
No! I'm like so shocked to hear that. Like, yeah. It's maybe like 10-15 years ago I would be like, okay, but that doesn't.
I know. I think, to be fair, I know there was a point in time where D&D was reflective of like you would take negative modifiers if you were old past a certain age, if you were had a different kind of physicality, if you had like, they actually did that. So I will be honest, I didn't keep on with that person, so I don't know, but I excuse it in my head as like maybe they came from a system that did ask that. But in all likelihood, they were just being a very poop person. Like,
yeah, I think it might be a poop person problem.
Yeah,
so that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that it got better.
It got much better. It got much better from there. That was like a funny story now of a jumping off point, but at the time I remember being so shocked because it was like my first game and I was like, really is this really how it works? Like, and I had no knowledge with which to question. Like, now I can look back and be like, that's absurd. But at the time I was like, okay, I guess.
And I was gonna say, if you are shy, introverted, it's a new experience, or if you have any sort of anxiety about doing things, and the GM is supposed to be the person that you look to for like direction, and then they're going, no, actually, you've got lady arms. You can't do that. You're gonna have to ask one of your male party members to help you.
Sure, you rolled so well that you in theory kicked down a door, but a man has to come help you turn the knob. Like, I don't know. Like,
oh, it hurts my brain.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move away from that experience. That we've got our laughs. Wow, what a time. I'm awful.
Yeah, that was my first one, but I was lucky. My next game, I did a little more research in what I wanted to do. By the time I played my next games, I had found homebrew and discovered I didn't have to play a human. I could play like a faun or a satyr if I had a nice enough GM, and I did have to go through a few GMs before one finally said yes. But I eventually got to play a faun druid, and that's when I truly began to live my D&D life.
I finally became who I was supposed to be. Well, it's fun too, because like I remember when I started in D&D 3.5, and I always was like, I don't want to be these classes. And so thankfully I also had a DM that was like, got there where it's like, yeah, you can be a pixie. Be a pixie. And I'm like, yes, I get to be my goth pixie dream. Yes. And I truly became alive.
Oh my god, that's amazing. See, that's the good stuff right there.
Yep. So then with that character, your faun druid, is this when the shenanigans begin?
Yeah,
I would love to hear about character shenanigans if you can remember and would like to share.
Oh my god, so many. My party started to like if we were coming up on a monster that we had to fight, but there was a possibility it was too cute, they'd have to keep me away from it. Because I would want to befriend it. It was gonna be my new best friend. And it didn't matter what I literally befriended so many monsters. It was my special skill. Oh gosh, it was definitely like the thing I was known for is like stopping and chatting with the plants, stopping and chatting with the animal, just living your best druid life, honestly. Being a druid was truly my calling.
Do you find yourself now to this day still playing like druid characters or like that kind of character type where you're trying to befriend things or cute animals and that kind of stuff?
It definitely is still very much a part of me and part of my brand, I would say. However, I play in a lot more varieties of games now, so I do like challenging myself to play a wider variety of characters. So I will, like, if I'm going to be part of a new show, if I'm going to be part of a new game, I do like to stop and think to myself, what haven't I done yet? Like, what haven't I done recently? Okay, I was just like a doctor. I was just a scientist. So maybe we'll be more of a warrior this time. Maybe we'll go stealth. I definitely lean more towards not having tragic backstories because I've decided that's just something I want to, like, do for my characters. That's something I want to give to them is happier starting stories, because it's such a cliche, but cliche for a good reason. You know, like it's a normal thing because it makes sense quite often. But I remember at a very early stage being like, what if they're happy?
I could have a happy character? Yeah. What is this fantasy? I don't know what you're talking about. No, that makes me really happy because, like, one of my biggest beefs right now with a franchise that I dearly love, which is Magic the Gathering, is with the Planeswalkers, where, like, every Planeswalker sparks out of some traumatic experience. Yeah. Like, they're able to traverse. I'm like, that's just sad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be like, my greatest power comes from just my trauma.
Yes, exactly.
Like, so that makes me really happy. I like that stuff. I like doing that too. I would say I started out with trauma characters.
Same. Yep.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, what if I instead have a very healthy, happy character who then has conflicts?
Yeah.
And stuff along the way. And that's fun. So going from, you know, you're playing, you discovered your druid fawn and you're playing games and you're finally like living your best D&D TTRPG life. When did the streaming part of that happen?
I think it actually happened pretty early. I would say like it was probably around the third iteration of my first group. Like I said, how it kind of refined. It was that first group of people and we were like, ooh, this game not for us. And, you know, we took a lot of the party and we went on to another game. And then we refined a little more. We went on to like another game. And at that point, there were already people that were much more tech savvy than me. A lot of my friends were a lot keener on that, better at that, more knowledgeable. And they said, why don't we stream our shenanigans? Why, like, it seems to be a thing people are doing now. Like, it was just very up and coming at that time. It's something like 5 or 6 years ago when it was like everyone had started doing, like, why not? And I never saw the production side of it at that point. I just got to play, which was fine by me. Like,
going from just showing up and playing, which is a delight.
Yes,
I love when I can just show
now
up.
When I get to just play, I'm like, oh, this is the sweetest gig.
And it's like, even when it's like I get to play and also I'm not producing or I'm playing because I've done the whole GM plus produce plus host a show. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so you are let's talk about that because that's a fun subject. Yeah. So you're doing you're just as a player and you're doing your streams. Mm-hmm. What was the first like produced show? Like you took the reins over.
Oh yeah. So a little while after my group started streaming, I was invited to become a host on a podcast. And the podcast started out as just an audio podcast, but then it turned into a streamed and then edited for audio podcast. So it ended up being both. And so when we first started, we had an audio specialist who edited all the episodes. So at that point, I just needed to lead the group and like, here's how you record your audio. Here's what we're going to do. And that sort of thing. And I didn't have to do any editing at that point yet, which was pretty sweet. And then we started streaming and it was like, okay, so same idea, a little more stuff. Here we go. Like I didn't have to make the layout. Someone else was like, here's the layouts, go. And I was like, sweet. Okay. So I really got to like stage by stage dip my toe in like a little, like dip my toe and then put my foot in there and then like up to my ankle, like, you know, up to my shin. And then like I really got to take it slow over the years, which is really a good way to do it, I would say, and doing like a little bit of everything. But yeah, just sort of slowly, naturally, I sunk into the water deeper and deeper.
Oh boy.
Whoops, how'd that happen? Now I'm like submerged.
It's funny how that happens. Like I'll start out doing one thing. I have this idea. I want to have a fun time with friends. Okay, I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I could do this. Oh, now I'm doing literally everything.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I guess I'm interested because I think some people maybe listening don't really know like what all goes into like producing a show. And I have knowledge that I'm sure coincides with your knowledge, but I would like for you to kind of like walk us through like, okay, I have an idea for a show and I want to produce it.
Mm-hmm.
How would you start that?
I would say stream a video game first. So, you know, get your channel, build it up, see how you feel, like play with some of the widgets, like, you know what I mean? Just prep, see if you want to do, are you doing the kind of game that needs to have alerts? Do you want visual alerts? Do you want them silent so they don't interrupt your story? Like, these are all things you want to like keep in mind. Do you want interaction, or are you just sort of live streaming this story to share your friend's game with people? Are you live streaming it to then just clean it up and put it on YouTube? Like, what is the point of what you're doing? Because whatever the point is, you're gonna want to take a slightly different view of it. You're going to want to keep in mind the perspective, because if you are doing it to be engaging with people, you're gonna want to have to actually be engaging with your live audience. If you want to have a nice cleanly produced thing, you're going to be focused on completely different things. It's very, very, very different depending on what you're doing. Highly produced content is obviously a lot more work. You're looking at a lot more editing. But overall, I mean, you can start in the same place. Kind of like what we talked about, like dipping your toe in a little bit first. Start with dipping your toe in just a little bit. Try out streaming. See how your computer handles it. See how you know, which program you like. Because there's so many. You can use OBS. You can use Streamlabs OBS. You can use XSplit. You can use, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So do a little bit of research. See what you want to do. But don't spend too much time on it until you've tried it, because you don't want to spend all this time, all this money, and then you hate it. Like, don't overextend yourself too early. Start small. Start as small as possible. And then, if you're doing it for a while, then, you know, add some stuff on. Then consider, like, improving your stuff. Start small. Let yourself start small. And let yourself grow naturally. Don't expect yourself to be other streams that have been doing it for a long, long time. Don't go in there and be like, why aren't there 50 people watching me right now? We're hilarious. You might be amazing. The story you're telling might be extremely wonderful and unique, and your group might be hilarious, but that doesn't change the fact that there's a lot out there, and you need to slowly find the people that fit with you. You need to slowly find, you know, your groove, your pacing for your game, for sharing your content with others. Like there's so many things to keep in mind, and just take it slow. Let yourself start small. Don't burn yourself out before you've even begun.
Yeah, don't make your to-do list so long and like have so much you're like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I really like that advice to just try streaming a video game.
Yeah, literally.
Because I know so many people in my past were like, I want to be a streamer. And then they start streaming and they don't know how to talk and engage with the audience, and they think people are just showing up. Some people do just want to show up just to watch a game be played, but a lot of times you have to be engaging, and it's for an audience. You got to be on.
Yeah, literally.
Ooh.
Start with what is most familiar to you. Start small, start comfortable. Do not put yourself into like, you're like, oh, this is the top tier category, I gotta start with like ultimate amazing animated layouts and like unbelievable transitions, doing the hardest speed run game imaginable. Like, do not do that to yourself.
Wise advice. Okay, so then let's go from like, okay, I've been doing it for a while, I like it, I enjoy it, and then specifically for TTRPG stuff, like, how do I start branching out? Like, how did you find yourself branching out? You know, you start with your small group of that refined group over time, but then how do I branch out, Jess? How do I do this?
It's gonna be different for everyone, but similar to with the streaming and stuff like that, start with where you're comfortable. If you already have a bit of a community on Twitter, then chat with your friends on Twitter, see who's around. If you already have some friends on Discord, you know, hook up with your friends on Discord. Like, whatever it is, find folks with similar ideas who have similar interests. You know, connect with people first. But actually connect with people first. Don't just like show up to a new place, a new space. Don't like just kick open the saloon door and be like, hey, who here wants to be part of my stream? I know you've never met me before, but I'm gonna do it.
And you're coming along with me. Yeah, just test the water, much like the dipping of the toe of producing. Don't feed someone your whole foot right off the bat. This metaphor is going a little bit.
I love it. I'm happy.
You got your group. Now who's GMing? And so for you, I kind of like you've been playing, right? You've been playing a lot of streams. When did you start GMing?
Not for a long time. So I will say that for me personally, my path was a little bit different. So I did start as a player, and then even when I took it over to my own channel and I started producing my own shows on my own channel, it was with, you know, I had those friends who were the forever GMs that were like, hey, I really want to GM this game. And I was like, sweet, I think that would be awesome. Let's find an appropriate cast of folks that will, you know, be fun, enjoy the story, and who want to be here, who want to tell this story. So I definitely still, even taking it over to my stream, even taking it over to my channel, even when I started producing my own TTRPG shows, I wasn't the GM right away. And even now, I don't specialize in GMing. I definitely specialize in facilitating, which is to say that one of the things I specialize in, one of the things I showcase the most and enjoy sharing the most is actually GM-less games. So those type of games still need direction, especially if you're doing a show. Like if you're playing a GM-less game at a table for the first time in the privacy of your own home, you can take the time to kind of learn it and mess up and like that sort of stuff. But if you are live streaming a first actual play of a GM-less game, then someone still needs to facilitate it. Someone does still need to like lead the story. So yeah, I definitely specialize more in facilitating, I would say, than GMing. I don't know why. It's my comfort zone, and I came to that. I can't even remember actually. I think it's because I've always loved indie games. I always wanted to highlight indie games. That's something that I've always done on my channel. I've played so little D&D on my channel. It's literally only been for like very special occasions when we were doing like very specific things. If not for that, the vast majority of content on my channel is smaller, not as big name games. Like sometimes it's still like larger company produced games, but usually it's very indie stuff. We find a lot of stuff on itch.io. I find a lot of stuff on itch.io. I literally will see something and I'll be like, gay dragons, hell yeah. That's how I choose games.
Perfect. I love it. Well, if it makes you excited, like, right, it's like, oh, I bet I want it. I want to try that. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Josh, and I run an actual play podcast that I'd like you to check out. I'm using the Godbound system, and I create a sandbox-style game in a large city called Moxbury. All of the player characters are evil, and I think that this really creates an interesting narrative because...
Nobody cares! I, Azrael, had to reconfigure reality to become the evil saint of Palor. Now I plan to overthrow the government of Moxbury and amass followers. Then I will become...
You wouldn't know the first thing about reconfiguring reality. I did it, not you. I, Milana, want no part of your feeble plans. When my plan comes to fruition, all of Moxbury will become my undead army, with them at my command.
They have to be dead before they become undead. I'm going to silence this entire city and prove myself. Prove Gerlach worthy of the goddess of the void.
No! Leave the monsters. I, Nuak Godslayer, will raise an army of monsters. They will overthrow our human leaders and live free. And I will be there.
Will all you quit your bickering and shut your faces? I, Brimstone, hear enough voices in my head without all of you talking over each other. All I want to do is kill the wizard Shalazar. It doesn't sound too difficult, does it?
If I have my way, it will be. Check out Tales from Moxbury wherever you find your podcasts or geekspective.com.
So, on your channel, what indie games can you throw some names out there that you've played?
Well, we started with, it's funny. I started as a big fan of Grant Howitt, who is I think a lot of people know him specifically for Honey Heist, which has had a lot of mainstream media attention because it's had it's just a really simple, fun system. I think it's one of those smaller games that introduce people to the concept of like single page games, like simple premise games. Like, here is one simple concept that you just take and run with it and you have fun. And that is one of the games that introduced me to that concept as well. But we've actually done a lot of Grant Howitt's bigger games, which is to say he has a few games that takes place all in sort of the same space, which is to say Spire. Spire is one of his first like big high concept, like large scale games. And they went on to continue Spire with a game called Heart, which takes place underneath Spire. So Spire is a mile-high city. And then Heart is the sort of wild magic, sort of chaos-reaching center that exists under Spire. So this world just keeps growing and keeps expanding, and it's really fascinating. And that's actually where I started, was campaigns of those games, and then I would do some of his one-page games as one-shots very regularly on my channel, and that introduced me to games on itch.io. And that's, like I said, how I started to be like, oh my goodness, there are games about literally everything. Like, you can find a game about being, you know, Knights of the Round Table, fairies of the Fey Realm, gay dragons romancing, stars in the sky. I am throwing out words, and I guarantee you I can find games about this. Witch's tea, sandwich magic.
These are all things I would play and want to play. It's so funny because I started out, Honey Heist was a huge, like, oh. And it's based off of Lasers and Feelings. I was like, ooh. And podcasting is how I learned from, like, people like you, right? Like, who are streaming these games, is like how I found out about this whole world as well. And I even made a hack of Honey Heist.
Yes. Hell
it's
yes.
called Goblin Grub, and it's about goblins running a food truck.
Excuse me, is this on itch.io?
It is on itch.io.
I'm going over there right now. Goodbye.
It came from a fever dream, it felt like. I woke up one Sunday morning, overslept, and was like, Goblin food truck.
This is amazing. That's how the best games come into being, and you cannot change my mind.
So that I saw also on your Twitter description that you also have designed games.
Yeah, I've made a few of my own games, which I would consider fairly niche.
I need to hear about them.
I definitely really like the idea of playing with what it means a game can be. So I have one game which I would consider my most traditional, my most extensive, which I would say is a game that, if you're familiar with indie games, I'd put it somewhere in between For the Queen and the Quiet Year, because it is a story that takes place over the course of a year, and to play it you draw from seasonal card decks. So first you play through spring, and then you play through summer, and then you play through fall, and then you play through winter. And it's pretty straightforward. You kind of go through the card prompts and you make up characters, and then you, in character, have to answer the question and figure out what is happening with your story. And that one is called Our Lady, and it's literally about, you play as kids who are visited by like a divine being of some sort, or a magical being, and it's very open interpretation. I've seen it done as kids in space. I've seen it done as shepherd kids in a field. I've seen it done as an anti-corporate rebellion. So it's very open to interpretation, how you start the story, and then you just play through the seasons to figure out what happens. I would consider that my most traditional. I then went on to write a game where you play as plants. And
okay, and like you said, I think there's a brand, like on brand. Okay.
Yeah. So then I went on to write this game where you play as plants, and I literally had the first people I had to playtest and sort of read it were like, "Is this a LARP?" Because I literally describe root yourself to your seat and prepare. You cannot move because you are a plant now. So I really started to be like, what weird things can I do with games? What can I make people consider and feel and experience and do? And so in that one, you literally you are a plant. You stick yourself down to your seat, you open up during the day and you gossip with the other plants, and then at night you close up again and you have these wild dreams.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So are you doing more like this? Is this the only one, or is there more in the works? Are there more out there?
I have several pages and pages of half-written game concepts and half-started things. The problem for me is I really need a kick in the pants to all of my games. Most of my games, that's not true because I've written several things. I actually have some games that only exist physically in person. If you didn't buy my game at certain games, if you didn't buy them at the last con I was at, you will never have that game because it only exists in physical space. I have games that were literally designed to be played at conventions. They're business card sized games, and they come in little packs of 5 business cards, and then you draw them as you are waiting in line at a convention, and you play through. My favorite one is literally called The Short Con, and it's about being at a con, and you play being at a con because I am a terrible brat person that needed to be as meta as possible.
We are a simulation.
I have a game that's literally a brochure, and it's called Into the Sun, and it's about yeeting trash people into the sun.
That seems very cathartic.
It is literally meant to be like a 2-3 minute little moment of catharsis to stop and like deal with a little moment of anger. And so that's why it's literally just a brochure to be like printed out and kept on your desk or used once and recycled.
I love it. I love it so much. I've had other guests on who love these kinds of games too. I think there's actually Tyler, Possible World Games. I was like, oh, you would like Possible World Games.
Yeah.
Because I saw that you recently played one of them on stream.
Yep. I did Grandpa's Farm. And that is specifically, it's so funny because last time Tyler was doing Kickstarter for Beak, Feather, and Bone. And I facilitated once again, because this is what I do. I love showcasing GM-less games because I want people to know that like sometimes you don't have the battery to learn a whole new game. Sometimes you don't have the battery to build up a whole scenario to GM, and like I get it. Like I'm that person. Hi, it's me. I have no battery left. So I'm that person that wants to find these games and share these games, and I love them. And so that's actually how I met Tyler, Beak, Feather, and Bone. We highlighted that one on my channel like last year whenever he was kickstarting that one, and then he reached out to me just a little while ago and he was like, hey, you really like Stardew Valley, don't you? And I was like, I do. It's one of my most streamed games. Why? I've got a game coming up called Grandpa's Farm. I was like, no, you're kidding me. And I was like, Tyler, I swear I would, but I'm so low. I don't have the time because casting is a huge thing when it comes to production and stuff like that. I was like, oh, Tyler, I don't have the time. I was like, wait, Tyler, can it be played single player? And he was like, why, yes, Jess, it can. I was like, done. It is on stream next week, Tyler. Don't you worry. It's happening.
It's one of the things that I think, behind the curtain, if you will, like one of the hardest things I'm finding with this show, to be very honest, listeners, is like finding, like making the time to answer. Poor Jess. I reached out to Jess like a month ago and then did not reply for a month.
I was 0% upset with you ever because I get it. I'm that person.
Yeah.
Hi, it's
yeah, and it's because it just takes so much time. Like your battery is low, and yeah, geez, I
think that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. Obviously, if you play a game and you keep the same cast for a really long time, then like cool, no worries, you're good. You're good for your 12 episodes, your 20 episodes, whatever it is, that's awesome. But if you have to organize, reach out to, facilitate a new cast every time, it's so much work and it's so much battery.
It truly is. It's like it's on one hand, one of the things I like about like static cast is that you get to develop a dynamic over time. And that's one of my favorite things about actual plays is getting to enjoy friends enjoying time together, right? And then on the other hand, when you're doing stuff like getting sponsored games or showcasing things, you want to network, you want to build that community, and so then you have to reach out for people who could bring their audience, their community into space, and then there you have it. And that's one of the things I've been like juggling, trying to like do myself. So how many of your streams are sponsor content versus you're just producing it out of your own, like, this is my community, this is what I'm doing for myself?
Yeah, that's definitely, if anyone's listening from my community, hi, hello, you will notice that we've had a lot less TTRPG content lately, and that is actually due to the fact where I'm at a point where I have set a precedent where if I'm going to have a show, a true ongoing show, I'm going to do my best to pay the cast for their time. It is really important to me. I have set that precedent, and I want it to be a industry standard. It's something I really care about. So as it is, unfortunately, going forward, I really am not looking to do any big long-term shows unless I already have a sponsor, unless I already have a guarantee that I can properly pay people for their time. That's a little different than, let's say, if I'm doing, we did used to do, and I'm trying to get it back up and running, we do occasional community days. And community day is a fun day where just like anyone that wants, I literally just open it up. I'm like, hey, anyone in the Discord, I'm thinking of doing Fiasco on this day, or I found this new indie game. Who would like to play? And that's a completely different thing where it's like, I will facilitate this for anyone that wants it. I will organize it, and that's a one-time for fun thing, and I'll allow that to go unpaid because it's anyone that wants to join. It's us trying a new game together as friends, as a community, that sort of thing. But like I said, if it comes to an actual proper campaign, an ongoing show, if it's going to be more than 4 episodes, I'm not going to do it unless I can pay the cast.
That's incredibly fair, and I feel the same way. I want it to be an industry standard. It's one of the hardest things for me to, when I'm putting a show together, it's like I want to be able to pay people. And so game designer, if you're listening to this episode, I think these days it might behoove designers, people who have games coming out, to kind of put a marketing budget and find the streamers that jive with their games and pay them, because I can tell you, most all the games that I've bought or played is because I heard a streamer or a podcaster playing it.
Yep.
And that's Jess. That's somebody you could, and there's lots of streamers, and it's part of the reason why I've been having a lot of TTRPG streamers, producers on the show, because of that reason. They're out there. They will play your game. They will have fun playing your game, and you will get marketing. Pay them. That's my soapbox.
No, it's absolutely true, and I really, really agree. Like, that's I've been lucky enough to have a few people actually do that, and that's something, like, if you are a new game designer, if you are doing a Kickstarter, do consider putting, like, in a small budget. Like, you're putting in a budget anyway for some sort of promotion, something like that. I know a few game designers who in the past, kept some money aside for their games to be run at cons. Well, unfortunately, I'm sorry to tell you, cons are a little bit up in the air right now. So a good alternative is, in fact, to approach streamers who do TTRPG content, producers who do TTRPG content, to really showcase your game. And I know, like, exactly like you just said, you can find someone that will fit you. You can find someone that's doing what you want, and it's good in a few ways. You can have the live stream where now you have, like, people playing it live. People can interact with it. People can enjoy it. That cast is probably comprised of a few people bringing in a few different viewers, so you're getting a few different eyes on it in that way. Usually as part of the stream, everyone will tweet like, hey, we're playing this game, come check it out. So you're getting a few different people that you might not have gotten before, shouting about your game excitedly. That's really good. And then a lot of producers like myself, after the live stream is over, will go and take that footage, take that stream, clean it up nice and neat, and put it on YouTube. And then or make it into a whatever it is. And then your game has an example of play in perpetuity for anyone that wants to access it, because maybe someone did hear about your game and they're like, oh, okay, I've heard about this, but I'm not sure what's it like. I don't really have the time to read the whole book, but, like, I just want to see an example of play. And I promise you, a lot of people do look for that. Look for, like we were discussing before, like, sometimes you don't have the batteries to read a whole new book. There's so many great games out there. I'm not, like, I would play a new game every day if I could, but I just do not have that battery. And a lot of people are the same way, and a lot of people will seek out actual plays or examples of play, whether it's on Twitch, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's via podcast. They'll experience it for the first time that way. They'll get familiar with it that way. They'll let themselves get excited about it that way, and that will get them interested enough to, like, then properly pick up the game and start playing it.
I'm nodding vigorously. Yes, all of that. So, Jess, if a person wants to view your content, or a game designer who wants to view your content, if they want to, where could they do so?
So I am live on Twitch over on my Twitch channel several days a week. I'm currently on a break, but I was myself and the wonderful amazing Bee Zelda co-produce a show for Roll20 called Indie Showcase, where we do in fact showcase a different indie game every week with a different cast of people every week. And my YouTube has a bunch of produced stuff, and honestly, like for people looking at production, both for people who are interested in starting up themselves and for people that are looking at getting a show produced, you can see the growth if you go back to my YouTube and see, my early days of streaming TTRPGs. It is rough. It is rough. But it was all done with love. It was all done with a lot of heart. And if you go to the much more current stuff, you can see that, like, when we have the time, when we are doing a full project now, when I have the ability and the support to bring on an amazing cast and take the time and do proper graphics, and we really focus on as well accessibility and making sure we have a variety of voices and faces at every table. It's really important to me that my channel is putting out what I want to see in the TTRPG world. I want to see a variety of folks playing games. I want to see a variety of stories, and I want to make sure it's accessible to as many people as possible. And that is the sort of stuff that I'm producing and the stuff I'd like to see more of. We make sure everything has closed captions. We make sure everything, has as many things we need to make it available to as many people as possible.
So Twitch. So what are your Twitch channels? What's the
good point?
What's that stuff? Links.
Sorry. So you can find me over at twitch.tv/go_JG. Over on YouTube is one of the examples of places they wouldn't let me have go_JG. So it is in fact Go Jess. If you didn't get that from my fancy online handle of go_JG, it's literally my name/initials. So JG is my initials. Go is the first part of my last name. So it's like go me. Go JG.
Go CJG. All right, Jess, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great chat.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the show. You can find me on Twitter at RocketOrca, Kenny as @Volfmir, and John is @CrosswaysGM. Tabletop Babble is part of the Geekspective Network. Go to geekspective.com to check out all our other shows or follow us on Twitter @Geekspective. Our theme music was provided by the Battle Bards.